Hello and welcome to The Pickle, brought to you by AC4SA, Academic Coaching for Student Athletes, and co-hosted by Ethan O'Day and Jack Sundberg. Here on The Pickle, we discuss with our guests, ranging from coaches to professional athletes, the pickle of all things: academics, sports, recruiting, high school to the pros, you name it, we talk about it. Our goal for the podcast is to give people insight into the sports world and student athletes' perspectives by sharing current and former athletes, educators, and coaches' real-life experiences. Telling story is one of the most powerful means for leaders to influence, teach, and inspire. These stories resonate in our culture, history, and lesson learned. The Pickle brings you these stories of adversity, triumph, failure, and determination to get inspired, to take them to your school, home, life, and court. Listen, learn, share, and enjoy. Today's guest is Lucas Luopa, who is the current hitting coach at St. Peter's University, a Division I baseball program in Jersey City, New Jersey, in the MAC Conference, featuring teams like Iona, Fairfield, and Marist. Lucas grew up in Keene, New Hampshire, where he was an all-state football and baseball player in high school. He played at Eckerd College in Florida as a shortstop, where he was All-Sunshine Conference player before transferring to the perennial Franklin Pierce University. He continued his success with an incredible .335 average in his college campaign. From there, he went on to be the graduate assistant at Franklin Pierce University and obtained his MBA, Master's in Business Administration. After a 2-year stint as a graduate assistant at Franklin Pierce University, he secured the job as the hitting and outfield coach at St. Peter's University.
Recording live, folks.
All right, here we go. First episode here of The Pickle. We're here with Lucas. Lucas, we need to get a pronunciation on your last name. Jack.
No, you didn't get it.
What's the last name pronunciation?
It's Luopa.
Luopa. Lucas Luopa here, coming in from New Jersey. I'm out here in Burlington, Vermont. We got Jack in Arlington,
Virginia
area. All right. So Lucas, how's everything going, man? Good to see you.
It's going good. Thank you guys for having me.
So yeah, Jack's gonna start off here, kind of going with a rundown here with all kind of what we are here at The Pickle. A rundown. These are going to be our 6 questions that we ask every guest that we have in the podcast here. Lucas, are you ready for the rundown?
I'm ready.
All right, let's do it. All right, dinner with one athlete.
I'm gonna have to say Tom Brady, being
Brady.
from New England and all.
Love it. Number 1 thing on the bucket list.
It's a tougher question. I think there's a lot I'd like to do. I think probably getting my feet on every continent except for Antarctica, obviously. I think that's a goal of mine.
Favorite movie?
My favorite movie, running it back to when I was a kid, I would say The Little Giants.
Oof.
Love it.
It's a classic.
How do you start your day every morning?
I start my day usually with a cup of coffee. Yeah. I go with bulletproof coffee.
Nice. And favorite quote?
My favorite quote would be, "If we're all thinking the same, no one's thinking at all." It's a Bill Walsh quote.
Ooh.
And then we're going to throw, for the 6th one here, favorite podcast other than The Pickle?
I would have to say the GM Shuffle with Michael Lombardi, Ad Van Nerk.
Love it. Well, yeah, there's the rundown right there. Awesome. I already feel like I know you a little bit better, Lucas. We have had a few conversations, met only a couple times, so I'm looking forward to getting to know you a little bit better. Jack obviously knows you a little bit better than I do. But Jack's gonna start us out with first question. Go ahead, Jack.
Yeah, no, I think this is obviously going to be a popular one for you, and sort of, I'm sure there'll be a bunch of talk of this. Now that you're a coach, obviously prior to us speaking to you, we let everybody know who you are and, what you're doing now and stuff like that. But, now that you're a coach, compared to when you were playing, do you see things differently now that you're a coach? And would you have wished you saw things, differently back then? Or is it sort of just the same, or, is it just sort of a mix?
I think it's a mix. I think it's somewhere in between. I was fortunate. I grew up, my dad coached high school football, all my brother's younger baseball teams as well. So I kind of always had that coach in the house, no matter what, around dinner, I was always having that coach talk, whether it was a situation that happened in one of our games or whatever it was, and we were always going over it. So I was definitely fortunate for that. But I think as a player, especially for baseball, you kind of go into practice and you don't really know what to expect. You kind of just go, you get stretched out, and then you're ready to do whatever it is. And I think as a coach, it's much more important to have a plan going into practice. I mean, obviously for the kids, so they can just show up and do what you tell them to do, so it's efficient.
Right.
And I think everything's just way more efficient that way coming into the plan. I think that's probably the biggest thing.
Right. So you have sort of, I guess, now that you're a coach compared to when you're a player you're just sort of coming in and you just sort of, what's what. But now that you're a coach, practice, I guess, is more of, I guess, really, because, come game time, it's really the guys play, it's just go time. So I guess it's more of coming into practice now, that's really more of your time for a coach, rather than when you're a player. Obviously, game time was your time and practice time was, something that you necessarily didn't look forward to.
Right. I think you nailed it. I think I've been around a couple of coaching staffs as well, where you go into practice and you realize as a player that it isn't the most efficient and you're not really getting much done. So I think that also gave me an edge coming into coaching. I think just to have more of a purpose in practice and just to have everyone be more efficient.
Dude, we've all been in those practices. You're just like, what are we doing here? This is just a waste of time.
3-hour batting practice where you get your 10 swings and you sit there for however long.
No, I think that's such a good point. And Ethan probably talked to that in basketball too. It's just like, sometimes as a player, like we get to practice and I'm like, what are we doing? What's going on? And then it was like, sometimes even when I was, playing now, I'm like, I'd love to run practice one day. Like I'd love to make this fun and exciting and more engaging. Especially in basketball, which is, like you're running plays more often than not. I don't know if Ethan, that's something you can talk to a little bit more, but.
Yeah, no, both of you guys being baseball guys, I have a bunch of questions here, but especially coaching at the baseball level. What would a practice plan look like for a baseball practice? Like as you're going through the season, could you kind of give just a quick rundown of what your jobs are, scheduling practice, like which guy does which, just a quick rundown on that, because I'd love to hear that.
Yes. So, I mean, it varies on each day, obviously, especially during these times. We don't know if we're going to have a full team at practice or anything like that. So it's tough to do a team defense when you only have 9 kids at practice and 4 of them. But I think, the pitchers are kind of on their own. They have the pitching coach and the head coach dabbles over there as much as he can. But for my situation, I'm with specifically outfielders. So it's a lot of just, seeing and reacting to balls more than it is really as much as feel. And in the infield, it's more of feel and footwork. You know what I mean? So a practice plan for us would be really maybe throwing a Frisbee at the guys, working on drop steps, being close to the fence, catching the ball, and then some batting practice and maybe some rundown stuff, pickles, first and third bunt defense, whatever.
A couple of pickles, I like that.
For the pickle pod.
Throw it in there.
Might as well.
To follow up on that, I'd like to hear more of your playing experience and then kind of how that's translated into coaching. So could you kind of just give us a rundown of, what your recruiting process was like, what it was like playing in college? I would love to hear that. And then how you balanced academics while playing, and how, we can all talk about that, how crazy it is, especially as a baseball player. I talked to Jack about this. You guys have an insane schedule where you're pretty much gone the entire second semester, especially if you're playing in the Northeast and you got to travel all over. Just about kind of your journey from high school through playing through college athletics and college baseball.
Right. So I didn't get recruited really out of high school. Went to a small public school in New Hampshire. just kind of played my way through high school, did a little bit of AAU baseball, nothing really. Was considering a couple Division III schools up north. Actually lucky my dad pushed me really. I wouldn't have probably reached out to schools down south, and he made me, and I did, and I ended up going to Eckerd College in St. Petersburg, Florida. I played there for 2.5 years. I left the team my junior season and went to Franklin Pierce University, small school in New Hampshire, finished there, and they actually offered me the graduate assistant position after my senior year of playing. So I spent 2 years there doing the coaching thing. But to your point on just the overall travel and balancing that schoolwork, baseball lifestyle, or whatever sport it is lifestyle, I didn't have a good feel for that at all coming out of high school. And it definitely carried over at Eckerd. It was definitely more of a challenge school wise for me. I didn't do well sitting through a hour-and-a-half class.
Right.
Didn't take great notes myself. And, looking back, obviously, I wish I had given it a little more effort in the classroom as well. But
what did you major in for your undergraduate? Was it the same thing through Eckerd and Franklin Pierce?
So it's switched. I was business administration at Eckerd and was switched over to sports and recreation management at Franklin Pierce.
And that's what because you went to graduate school and you got your master's in that, correct?
Yes, at Franklin Pierce. Yes.
And talk about a little bit about, because it happens a lot in college athletics where guys transfer. I mean, it happens all the time. And I think that people don't really realize that it happens all the time, but especially for baseball, guys will go to, I'm sure for a little bit, Ethan, it actually happens in basketball a lot. Guys will go to a 4-year school. And, this didn't happen with Lucas, but just an example, a guy will go to a 4-year school, then he'll go to JUCO, then he'll end up at another school to get recruited out of the JUCO, because freshman year, a lot of times you don't play. But I mean, you being a transfer guy, what was that like sort of, adjusting to different coaching styles? Because I'm sure in Eckerd, you're down near Tampa, Florida, and St. Pete, you're in the sun, it's gorgeous. And then you go up to hard-nosed Northeast baseball, where guys are just sort of bred differently up there, they were just sort of blue collar and just sort of hard-nosed. What was the difference, transferring? Was it like a big, like, oh man, I got to get adjusted to this? Or, you were already a New Hampshire guy, so did you sort of blend in?
Right. It helped being from up here and kind of knowing what Franklin Pierce was about before I had even played there. Coach King, I talked to him through high school a little bit, not much. Didn't get much love from him then. But then he actually got me to Franklin Pierce my junior year. And then a couple of weeks later, took the job over at Dayton. So, but, having 2 staffs even at Eckerd and then coming into the 3rd staff at Franklin Pierce.
So there was a switch of coach at Eckerd, correct?
Yeah. So after my freshman year, we had a new coach come in for those next 2 or 3 years.
So you really dealt with 3 staffs all of college.
Right. Yeah. And a different variety from all 3 of them, really, which was interesting. And I got to learn a lot from all 3 of them, really, whether it was positive or negative. And I didn't realize this really at the time, but I ended up taking a lot from all 3 of them.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, a lot of people, they're either with the same coach all 4 years, or maybe they have a new hitting coach here and there. But a lot of times it's, 4 years, 3 years. If you get drafted, you're pretty much dealing with the same guys every day. So, I mean, which I can only imagine had an impact on you coaching, now, getting to see different coaches, different styles, seeing what works, what doesn't work.
Definitely. I think overall just communication with players is my biggest takeaway from all 3 of them. I don't think anything's as important as just letting a player know where they stand and just being open and honest with them about their situation on the team.
Right. Do you think that you get a lot of freshmen, or even in your playing career, where you get freshmen coming in and they're just like expecting like the world, and you're just like, this just isn't it. Like it's going to be a tough wake up call for him. Cause I mean, it happens all the time. I mean, I see even in pro ball guys come in, I'm like, oof, this kid's going to have a tough time.
Right. You can tell they're overmatched. Definitely at Franklin Pierce as well. They got a lot of people at the open tryout and everything like that. You could kind of tell immediately.
Yeah.
But even at Eckerd, there was the same situation, as you could tell. Some kids were really overmatched as freshmen, and they realized it right away. And some players really didn't realize it right away, and they were either pampered their younger lives and told they were the best at their sport, and they didn't just really realize it. Or
yeah. Do you see that now coaching, like that guys are more pampered, or do you think it's, because obviously it's talked about a lot, just like, everyone shouldn't have a trophy, you should earn it. Do you see that more with the younger guys coming in, or not really?
I think some. I don't think it's all of them. I think to put them all together is
I think so
lazy,
too.
But definitely these past 4 or 5 years of coaching, I've ran into plenty of freshmen who come in and they didn't know what they were in for, and it's cool.
And I think it's almost like a psychology thing. Like, even for me, I was like, man, I just got to make it to college basketball, right? And then everything will be good. It's like, no, you got to get there, and that's when the real work starts.
Right.
Exactly.
Even with me, I was like, man, I just got to and I was in prep school grinding it out, and I'm like, I just got to get once I've started basketball, it's going to be so fun. It's going to be so awesome. And you get there and you're like, this is crazy. I got the classes, and the practices are nothing like anything you've ever seen before. You do basketball, you do your first 3-hour practice, and you're like, what was that? Like, you can't compare it to anything else. The first practice of the year. And I think baseball is the same thing. The focus that you have to have, it just all changes. So it's good that we're talking about this, because hopefully we have some listeners that, kids that want to play sports. I want to talk about both of you guys being really under-recruited guys and reaching out. Super underrated thing that people don't understand. You can put a little clip of you on Twitter now and reach out. You don't need to go to an exposure camp. Just sending an email. I've had a teammate that just sent an email and got on our team from that, strictly from an email. Just doing little things and reaching out. Like, can you guys kind of talk about? I mean, I know Jack really did a lot of work, and it sounds like you as well, Lucas. So if Lucas wants to talk about that first.
Yeah, go ahead, Lucas.
I think coming from New Hampshire, I was pretty blind to the whole college process in general. I didn't, my brother didn't quite get recruited Division 1 or 2 level. He was 3 years older than me, so I didn't see much of a process there. And just like you said, Ethan, running into that situation in college where everything's just kind of overwhelming. And then aside from that is seeing those other 12, 13 freshmen there that are maybe a little bigger than you, like, maybe a touch stronger than you, but it's really all about how you prepare. And when preparation, when you do what you can to prepare for whatever it is, and you should have the confidence when you're in that situation.
Right.
So I think just being the under-recruited or non-recruited player, it just added the chip on my shoulder to just want to go into every day and prove it.
Yeah, no, I think so for sure. I mean, I think that it's funny. We were just talking about the kids who, think they should go play at Georgia or think they should go play at Florida. And I think being sort of an under-recruited guy, it was like, at first I was a little nervous about even reaching out to schools. I'm like, am I good enough to go play there? It's like, I don't know. Like, can I go make it at like a Florida or a place like Vanderbilt? You're like nervous about sending out emails. But I think, obviously you have to have a gauge of what kind of player you are and how good you are. I mean, I think that that's why it's good to be honest with players, like Lucas was talking about, communication. But then at the same time, it's like, if you believe in yourself, like, you got to be able to be bold. Like, you can't be scared to call a coach, send an email, put your Twitter thing out there. Like, if you can't put your Twitter thing out there and just lay it out on the line, then maybe this isn't for you. Cause like, you gotta put it out there. Cause there's, how many kids play college sports and how many kids even go play Division 2 or Division 1? It's like,
right.
Which is scary. I mean, it's like, cause you're putting yourself out there, and a lot of stuff you do behind closed doors, either you're hitting with your dad or, hitting with your buddy or getting shots up, at the Y or something like that, where it's like you're sort of private. And then when you like broadcast it out there, it's scary because you're like, oh my God, like these kids at school are going to see it. It's scary stuff for sure. And especially in today's age, like when everything's online, like I can't even imagine just like,
don't want to get roasted.
Don't want to get roasted. You
Right.
just don't want to get roasted. So you're thinking to yourself, you're like, oh man, I'm going to post this. And everyone's going to be like, dude, you can't go play there. Are you kidding me?
Right.
So I think, it's just like, you got to be bold, but you also have to be like honest with yourself. Like if you see those guys on TV, you got to be like, all right, well, that's what I gotta become. Which, it's tough, but I guess it's just sort of, part of it. So,
I think just to expand on that a little bit, just to reach out to someone, the worst thing they're going to say is no, or we don't have a spot for you, and then you try to find the next best fit.
Yeah.
You just got to keep shooting that shot. Like talking to both of you guys, like behind this too, especially Jack, like you just got to keep asking, and then eventually, you'll find the fit, and one coach will be like, wow, like he gets the email, he just stumbles upon it, sees the film, he's like, I need to fill this spot. I'm going to meet with this guy. I like his character. It'll happen like that, but you got to just continuously really shoot your shot with these coaches and do the work. Like you can't just rely on yourself or other people just recruiting you at any exposure thing. You got to put in the work yourself if you really if you're not getting highly recruited. Luckily for me, like I just had the option. Like I visited Vermont, I visited Davidson. They both gave me scholarship offers. I just had to decide between the two, and I didn't have to. I decided like I wasn't gonna wait till later to see if I wanted to play high major. I was like I wanted to play basketball instead. And I figured like that was the fit. But talking to you guys, it's just so interesting. And you're seeing this in college basketball too now. I'll just keep going on this tangent. But college basketball, you see these guys, the ones that aren't recruited highly, they're panning out. You see all these stories of these guys that are pan out to be, these great players that really develop in college. Because in college is when you see those big growth, the big growth. And I'm sure it's the same with baseball. Yeah,
no, it's funny. I'll take it sort of back to what Lucas was saying about the no thing. I think so often, as athletes, like we think we know what's going to happen. So like before you send an email or make a call, you're like, he's not going to respond. So then so many guys just don't make the call because they think they know what's going to happen. It's like, if you think you know what's going to happen, just like might as well just do it and see what's going to go on. But I think so many people are scared to do that. Even like walking into a coach's office, I've had so many like just mental battles myself where I'm just like, he's not going to like it. He's not going to make a change. But like, just go in there and see what happens. I mean, I think that's, half the battle, like as an athlete or just with yourself, is just like, just going to do it, So, I think that's pretty important. I would like to get a little perspective on, now that you're a coach, because obviously, AC4SA, the academic coaching stuff, we're doing a lot of stuff with academics and preparing guys for college and making sure they're in the right fit. Do you see guys coming into practice like overcome by the college? Like when they come in, you can just tell that they're sort of just like not there because of academics. And have you had any conversations with students student athletes of yours that are like, Coach Lucas, like, I'm just like overwhelmed right now. I got these exams coming up. And sort of what is your advice to them now that you're on the outskirts and you've sort of been through the process? Like, hey man, just sort of buckle down and get through it, or like, what do you try to say to them?
Yes, definitely. We get, especially the younger kids who come in and they're definitely overwhelmed just by the whole school thing, and especially this year being online. We have a couple of kids who even commute from home online.
Wow.
So, they have class until 2:00 and say we have a 2:30 practice, and they live a half hour away. So, it's we really have to give them that leeway for a class, especially the younger kids. Like I said, right? You're a student athlete. You're not an athlete student, right? So,
right.
I mean, I think just, setting those periodical meetings with the kids, which our head coach does a great job with, and just checking in on the classes and making sure they're keeping up with work, whatever they're doing. If they have any zeros, we're getting on them for it. So I think just, I think just really prioritizing the school with the kids from a coaching perspective is important for them to just hear it from you.
Right. So then they don't feel like sort of they're doing the wrong thing, even though they are. But, I think that, like you were just talking about, is like, even when I was playing, and I'm sure both of you guys, it was like, the biggest thing for me was not like dragging stuff over. Like when I was practicing, I was practicing. And like when I was getting my work done, I was getting my work done. But when you start like mixing everything, I think that's when really, younger kids especially just get overwhelmed. It's just like too much. It's like they can't box everything. But when you box it, it just, then you're just totally focused on what you're doing in the moment, which I think is, people talk about being present all the time. I think it's one of the hardest things to do, because it's just like, especially college athletics, like you have so much going on. You got your schoolwork, you're trying to manage your social life. Maybe you're trying to get a girlfriend. I don't know, but like there's a lot of stuff going on. Yeah. So
yes, really, that's a great point. I can almost remember this. My freshman year in college, I'm like in the middle of a practice, and all I kept thinking about, oh my gosh, I got this 6-page paper that I got to get done like after this, that I'd put off, or something like that, or it was an exam, so one of those two things. And I was so stressed about it. I could not get it off my mind all practice. You ask an 18-year-old kid to just focus on a 3-hour practice, knowing that he has 4 hours of work to do after that.
Yeah.
It's extremely hard thing to ask that kid to be completely focused. You see all the time. The coaches just absolutely like going in on someone because they're not focused in practice, and it's because kids are stressed with finals or other things like that. And it's so
right.
And it's at the end of the day, to be honest, there's going to be times where you're just not 100% there.
Yeah.
It's because of those things when it gets heavy, but trying to find out those like tools and talking to people to separate it. I'm at practice now. There's no reason to dwell on that thing later. I will get to that when I have to get to it.
Because you can't do anything about it now. You literally can't do anything about it. Like you're in practice. But you literally can't do anything.
Your brain does not want to let you do it. Like you got to train yourself. And like over the years, I realized like it is what, like I'll deal with that when I have to deal with it. So that's like everyone could speak on that, but it's tough. Like you just got to learn it and go on with it. But.
Yeah. Which I'm sure it'll, like, Lucas, you could talk about this a little bit. Just like when you're open with your players and just communicating more, it just makes, when you're just understanding, like you like, and especially like now that you've played at a high level and you've dealt with all that stuff, like being able to communicate that to your players, like, hey man, like I know you got a lot going on in school right now, and like, but I need you here right now. So like, we can take care of that stuff afterwards, but like you said, like, sort of you communicating, I'm sure that goes a long way.
Definitely. And you can realize it when you have these conversations with the kids about the classes, especially about how we're just going to focus more on it, and we're going to deal with it when we deal with it, not during practice time. You can really see that, and the kids just then kind of, let their shoulders down a little bit, right? They relax a little bit, and they can start to recenter their focus on the practice or whatever it is they need to get done.
Right. No, that's good stuff. I mean, it's just, I mean, we could talk for days about just like being a college athlete, like what it entails, what like you read about and like what you hear about. But I think that's one of the great things about this podcast. I think it's going to give, kids, and just like in real life, I mean, a lot of people, that's like you're in a high stress environment, just, letting people like know the real like ins and outs, like, cause you don't really hear about it. And even like when you ask someone like, hey man, what's it like to play college sports? Like, what's the academic thing? You're just like, yeah, man, just like try to balance it and like just stay on top of it. But like to give people like real insight of what it's all about, I think that's really cool. So.
You have to be a very resilient person to play a sport in college for 4 years, right? That's why, you just a mutual respect to anyone else that plays a college sport and is able to balance the academics. Like anytime I meet someone and I hear it, I want to talk to them about it. Like, tell me a crazy story. Like, I'm sure you got some crazy stories, and it's like you went through a lot of stuff. Like it's just completely different. And it's always good to talk about these things. Going down the coaching route again, I want to know, Lucas, when when you knew you wanted to be a coach, like professionally, and like were you juggling another idea with what you wanted to do from a professional standpoint?
So I didn't really have any thoughts of after college baseball when I was playing college baseball, which was probably a problem. I was really just focused on playing and getting schoolwork done and whatever it was.
As most people are, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think when I left Eckerd College, that it wasn't a great situation down there, and I think that's when I really realized that I think I would like to do it someday, to coach. And I didn't really care about. Say that again.
No, just because the environment in Eckerd, you were like, I could do this better. Like you're sort of that.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. I just think, I saw this guy and I don't want to get specific, but I people get these jobs and they're overwhelmed with their own job and they don't know how to handle these situations and whatever it is. Either the game's too fast for them, or they don't, they never played the game or whatever it is. You know what I mean? So it's just, as a player, I struggled to rein myself back, because like I said, I grew up in a coaching family, really, and it was, everything was talked about, like why you shouldn't do this or why you should do this, or like situationally speaking, it's like, there are certain times you don't bunt or whatever it is, baseball wise, and it's just
right. Yeah.
And I just realized that there were enough people out there that I thought I could at least make an impact with the team, or younger kids even in high school, to maybe propel them into a college situation.
Definitely.
Awesome.
Definitely.
Now that you're a coach, do you find yourself like being like, man, I really wish I was still playing, or you're like so content with being a coach, like inspiring the next generation? Where's that balance? Like, I know, like for me personally, like I do some coaching. I'm just like, sometimes I'm like, whew, I really wish I was playing right now. But then I think about those things that I don't miss about it too. So it balances out for me.
Definitely. Yeah. I feel the same way. There are days out there at practice where I'm like, oh, I'd love to just go like take a couple at bats and take some ground balls, whatever it is. Right? Like you just want to get out there. And then like you said, you think about like being that student athlete again and that grind, right? Like you got to wake up for that 6 a.m. lift, then you got to go to class, then you got to go to practice at this. Like, I wouldn't say I miss being a college athlete, I guess. And part of it is, I think, also because I enjoy being a coach now, and I enjoy that aspect of it, and just kind of just helping these guys get better, whether it is just as a person or as a player, or they help me get better as a person, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Well, let's wrap.
No, I mean,
right here.
Yeah, no, I think that actually sort of segues perfect into sort of, we're going to try to wrap every, the Pickle Pod up with sort of one last question, which is sort of a notorious question that, younger athletes ask a lot to me, Ethan, and I'm sure you, Lucas, as well. Just as like, if you could give sort of, one piece of advice to younger Lucas when he was coming up, with college athletics and academics and high school and dealing with it all, what would be your advice, to Lucas, I don't know, 5-10 years ago, if you could go in and, say, hey man, like this is what it's about, or what advice would you give yourself?
You don't know what you don't know. So I didn't really know what college baseball was all about. I didn't know that academic commitment that you have to have. So I guess my advice to my younger self would just be to take it more serious, take school more serious, especially. And just, there's always more you could do, but when you're by yourself and no one's looking, what are you doing to really get better? Like whether it's school wise or for your sport. So I think it's just, the advice I give myself is just, there's always something to do.
Yeah. No, I know. I think that's a great point, just as far as like, especially when no one's looking. I mean, it's easy to do stuff when people are looking, but like, what you're doing when, behind closed doors, sort of that sort of saying, I think that's definitely true, without a doubt.
Hey, well, Lucas, thanks so much for joining us, man. Listen, I got one thing I want to ask you. I play in this tournament every year. I'm gonna need like a discounted one-on-one hitting Zoom to get ready for that. I've only been batting like under 200 the last couple of years.
We can definitely get you going.
He's got these big
in the zone nice and early.
I know he's got these big long arms and he chops like he's just doing this guy. He's just.
Hey, listen, that's how they used to teach it. That's how they used to teach it. You gotta bat straight to the ball, babe.
I could strike you out and whoop them all. I'll be that. Hey, thanks so much for coming on, Lucas. We'll be in touch, and it's awesome we got you on the first episode here. So thanks.
That was great. I appreciate you guys.
All right. Thanks for tuning in to The Pickle, who is brought to you by AC4SA, academic coaching for student athletes, whose goal is to use the power of sport to unleash the athlete's potential in the academic arena.